welcome. I always have so much fun reading through the comments for where everybody's coming from because you all are from all over the country and the world now. We've got the Canadian. Welcome. Hi, everyone. For anyone who's new to one of my webinars, my name is Melanie Naranjo. I head up the people team here at Athena. We're a compliance platform, everything from harassment prevention to DEI and anonymous reporting. And our mission as a company is to create more inclusive and ethical workplaces. And so we always love helping do exactly that through our webinars and providing education for everyone. I'm very, very excited, and thank you all for putting up with my needy cat right now who will not go away. I'm very, very excited about today's webinar and for today's special guest. As you know, I typically do my webinars solo, but we very much wanted to partner up with Mita on this one. Mita, for anyone who isn't familiar with her already, she's all over the place on LinkedIn, so I don't know how you could have missed her, but she's the Chief Diversity Officer at Carta. She's also a published author, I suppose. I don't know if technically you have to say soon to be published author, but her first book, Reimagine Inclusion, Debunking 13 Myths to Transform Your Workplace, is coming out in October. Let me know if I got that date wrong. And she has a passion for inclusive storytelling and transforming businesses. And I'm so excited to be chatting with her today. We met a few months ago through Troop HR. If you don't know of it, I highly recommend. It's a great community. All of you, especially if you all are interested in the topic of getting ahead of in your HR career, should be joining people communities, building your network, making friends, creating allies to lean on, and just so happy to be here on the call with you today, Mita. Thank you again for joining us.
Melanie, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here with you all. I am in the great state of New Jersey in the US, and there is a severe thunderstorm. So I'm going to say a prayer to the tech gods and hopefully we're okay. But thanks for your patience. If you see me jump out of my seat, it's because there's a lightning strike.
Same here. Jersey represent. There are a couple of Jersey people in the comments, yes. And yeah, it is storming. My poor dog is just like shaking in a corner over there. I'll cuddle him later, but he's not a fan of storms. Well, I'm super excited about this topic today. For everyone who's tuned in, I'm sure you know because you registered for this webinar, we're going to be talking about how to get ahead in your HR career. Woo, lightning. And the reason that this topic actually came about is because, you know, if you're familiar with me, I post on LinkedIn as well. And typically I'm writing topics around, you know, guiding HR and things that I wish that I had known coming in, sharing HR tips and best practices. And the more feedback I got, the more comments and the more interactions I had, the more I realized I don't think enough people are talking about HR career growth and how to help each other and how to get ahead. And so what I'd love to do is I'd love to kick this off with one of my famous pulse check questions. For anyone in the comments who's new to this, this is how it works, all right? I'm going to ask a pulse check question. You're going to answer me in the comments. If you don't want me to call on you, just put a little asterisk next to your response and I will make sure not to call on you. I don't want that to be a reason that you don't participate. And then if I call on you, Amanda, who's helping us behind the scenes, will give you mic access. You can unmute yourself and then I'll call on you to share a little bit more. All right, so with that said, got my first question here. On a scale of 1 to 5, how much do you agree with the following statement? My entire HR career has been smooth sailing. 5 being so smooth, never dealt with an obstacle. 1 being, oh my gosh, is it done yet? Like, where's the seatbelt? Okay. Getting some amazing responses here. Also love diversity of responses. Mita, before I jump in, and first of all, thank you all for the participation. These are just coming right in. Mita, as you look through the responses, what's going through your mind right now?
I was like, was -1 an option? It was just 1 to 5? What was the scale?
Yeah. Oh, we've got a 3 crying. Love it. Okay, let's call on someone who is given permission for us to call on them. Let's do Callie Rosenberg, Callie Cally Rosenberg. If you could go ahead and unmute yourself, tell us a little bit more about why this is a 2 for you. Why would you say on the scale of my entire HR career has been smooth sailing, it's a 2?
Hi, everyone. My name is Hi, I'm from Philadelphia. I'm also experiencing some rain and thunderstorms, so hopefully you hear me and I don't lose power. But I don't know if other people on here have feel the same way, but I didn't come to HR and like your typical like out of college went right into HR. I actually started in client implementation and customer success. And so the trajectory of my career was not like so straightforward. I kind of landed in HR, had the ability to move into an HR team internally where I was in a, customer success type of role. And so, there's things that are, tricky and you just kind of like land here and you figure it out. And it's not your typical traditional career trajectory. So yeah, just learning as you go.
Yeah, and tell me a little bit more about that. So it's not traditional, it's not typical. You're learning as you go. What's hard about that? What sort of made that a little bit bumpy for you?
I think, you're just coming into something where I had been more on like the client facing side, customer success. And so moving into people, you and into the people space, you're figuring out things that you didn't know before. And in HR, we all are in this, position where you're have kind of access to maybe confidential information and seeing things and hearing things that you wouldn't have otherwise known. And so I think that can be a lot for someone who's earlier in their career who was kind of outside of that space. And I remember that was really tricky for me about 6 years ago when I landed into this, like making that transition to when you're, kind of learning more about people and the things that are going on from a performance perspective, or like, concerns around performance and things like that.
So relatable. Thank you for sharing. I don't know if you noticed in the comments, but you got a lot of plus ones to the whole I entered in a very atypical way. Let's call it one more person just to get a bit of diversity of perspective. And then Mita, I'm really curious to dig into this one with you. Suzanne Cleveros, if you could unmute yourself, you gave a 1. Normally I would call on the other extreme and do a 5, but we didn't get any 5s. So Suzanne, if you could tell us, why is this a 1 for you?
Um, that's a good question. Sorry, I got lost track a little bit here. I
Oh,
think
sure. The question is, my entire HR career has been smooth sailing.
right, not really, but I think both yes and no. I think this is the hardest part where we have so many pieces where it is going really well, but it's also at the same time we don't know what we don't know. So the situation I'm currently in, for me, it might go smooth sailing. For me, for other people, it might not. And I think that's the challenge sometimes when you talk to other HR people, you keep hearing like, this is going well, this is not going well. So you don't know what you don't know. And I think this is good where we continue to talking as an instance, how to level up to next step. How do we go from point A to point C, for instance?
I think that's a great point. You're getting a couple of plus ones in the comments. I even think about when the pandemic hit, right? Like, what do? We don't even know. There's no roadmap for this. We're just figuring it out. And, with HR, there's this intersection with all these other teams and departments, right? There's like a financial element. If you're doing payroll, there's, a bit of a legal element. If you're doing an investigation, for example, right? And there's so much that you might not be prepared for. Thank you everyone for sharing. I would love to, Mita, turn it over to you. Let's take a step back. So first and foremost, Mita, walk me through your career trajectory before we talk about, any challenges or rocky bumps along the way. How did you get into your current role as, Chief Diversity Officer at Carta? And we can go way back, to the point of, did you even know HR was a thing, that DEI was a thing way back when as a kid?
I talk about this in my new book, Reimagine Inclusion, Debunking 13 Myths to Transform Your Workplace. And in the intro, I talk about how I have been chasing inclusion my entire life. I'm the proud daughter of Indian immigrant parents. I was born and raised in Massachusetts with my younger brother, and I was the funny looking, dark-skinned girl. I had a long, funny looking braid whose parents spoke funny English until it wasn't funny anymore. And I was bullied a lot, both verbally and physically, by my peers. And I knew every day I didn't belong in this community. I also didn't grow up in an Instagram era, so I didn't see myself reflected in products and services when I was growing up. And so I was introverted and painfully shy because of my environment. I wrote a lot. I spent a lot of time alone. And no surprise, I had a very long career in marketing. I still consider myself a marketer because I always wondered, like, I'm watching a movie. Why isn't there anyone who looks like me in it? Or film or content or books or a commercial, or I'm walking down the beauty aisle. None of these products are going to work on my skin tone. So I always was curious about that. And it was really at Unilever, I was asked by my then CEO to lead inclusion efforts. And like many people, I had a lot of biases about HR. I was a marketer. I thought, what am I going to do in this career, in this role? And my younger brother reminded me, this could be a great opportunity to be a catalyst for change in an organization and not just think about inclusion in marketing, but end to end. I'll also say one of my observations as I've been reading the comments and Melanie, listening to you ask people about whether their career has been smooth sailing in HR. HR is, the people function is one of the most important functions. Like, the people are the company. And so especially when you think about companies that are just starting out, like some of the most important hires that you'll ever make are in the people function. And then you get all the way to the big Fortune public companies. And what I never understood is, like, I never saw HR professionals being trained very well versus other functions. It was always learn on the job, how to terminate, how to do an investigation, how to do a off-cycle promotion, like all these things. And it's like, well, where are the courses and trainings? Like, I don't understand, because I grew up as a marketer. There are very clear trainings on how to pull Nielsen data, what a buyer at Walmart might expect. Like, there are all these things that I learned. And so it's like the function that is the most important, that is in service of others, but somehow is always last. And even with this amazing community, Melanie, you've built, and Troop HR, how we met, we see that, like, the people function is the future of work. It's the now of work. And so more and more people are scrambling and wanting community to understand, like, how they can up level and upskill themselves. Because I think many organizations just aren't providing it.
It's just wild when you think about it, really, because to your point, it's personal, right? Like, we're not growing. And actually, one of the things that I love about anyone who comes into HR in quote unquote atypical way is that you bring that validation, like, oh no, there is a better way to do this. But also you bring that diversity of perspective, right? Like, I've been on another team. I've seen how other teams do. I've seen how this can help. The other thing that goes to my mind, I was thinking about this the other day, is that, like, on the one hand, it's bad for us personally, right? Like, we personally, our growth is being stymied. We're having to figure things out. It's not a good emotional experience.
Oh.
And right. And also, to your point, this is for our people, the most critical asset at any company. And when I think about, the fact that a lot of our responsibilities, they force people, whether by choice or not, to experience their most vulnerable moments with us, whether it be during an investigation, whether you are the accuser or the accused, right? Whether it be, unfortunately, you're being laid off or terminated.
Absolutely.
And you're going to put someone who has not gotten trained, who has not been supported, who has not been empowered, you're going to put them in that conversation. It's just mind-blowing to think about the position that we put everyone in, both HR and the people that they're, catering to and supporting. Yeah, go ahead.
No, and I think, to your point, there's an art and science to these things. Many people who are in the people function have strong empathy, strong EQ, but then there's a science of, like, this is how we do things at Carta. This is how we do things at this company. And there's a match of those things. So just because I've been a great chief people officer at some other company doesn't mean it's going to necessarily transfer to this. Like, I have to understand the people, the culture, and I have to be upskilled on that. And so to have somebody day one do an investigation or be part of a termination and having to lead it, they're like, I actually don't know if I'm the best person to do this right now. Like, I need support and help.
I'd love to, and I'm so sorry if you can hear it. It's literally storming so bad.
You probably can hear it from my end too. It's like echoing from both of our ends.
The windows are shaking. Oh, good. Okay, sounds like no one can hear anything. There you go. I'd love to dig in a little bit deeper. Like, I'd love to get super specific here, and in particular with one of your role, right, where you're so focused on DEI, and I think many people in the DEI space, whether you're specializing in DEI or you're covering it as an HR professional, are seeing that DEI is being forced forced with even more challenges than before, right? It's only getting worse. I don't know if anyone's, aware of the recent Supreme Court ruling. All these things are happening. When budgets get tight, DEI gets deprioritized. I'm curious to know, what are some specific challenges that you faced in your career specific to your people experience, and what hurdles did you have to climb that maybe someone on the outside looking in wouldn't necessarily be aware of?
I'll speak to my experience as a woman of color in corporate America. I did not expect the bullies from the classrooms and schoolyards to follow me into conference rooms. Like, I didn't expect that to happen. So I would say, me, as I rose in my career, I hate the word microaggression. What's the opposite? Macroaggression. Everyday aggressions I faced in my career, both as a marketer and now in the people function. That's probably a webinar for another time, but being the lonely only. Also, I think having to gain the trust of other individuals on a people leadership team, because here I was as a marketer coming in. What do I know about what it means to be a people leader when so many people had grown up, especially in large Fortune 100 companies, right? They had been 25 years in the people function, and here I was like, I'm just here learning. But I think one of the things, so that was maybe viewed as a disadvantage, but I'm really good at building relationships. I enjoy that. And I also bring the business lens. I know we'll get into that. I can't unlearn it. So really understanding, I don't care what you're doing today, you're selling something. So you've got to figure out how much you're selling to and why, and how much are you making, and that funds everything else. I don't care if it's like a bottle of lotion or if it's a, software program. Like, we're all selling something, right? And so that's really important. And so I brought that expertise into the people function. And then I think we can talk about this more. There is a huge backlash happening against DE&I. Let's just call it what it is, right? Whether it's Anheuser-Busch or Target or the affirmative action ruling, which happened in the US, the Supreme Court ruling, which will impact workplaces. It makes me really sad, because what do I think the basic definition of inclusion is? It's, I work for Melanie and I feel valued, seen, recognized, my voice matters, it's heard. And I feel like this is a place where I belong and I can work. And that is the simple definition of inclusion, right? And we want everyone to feel that way. So I can reach my potential, the company can reach its potential. And I feel like we're operating in a world right now of extremes. This is woke, this is anti-woke, this is political, this is apolitical. And I think, many companies are going and navigating that now.
It's just so wild to hear, because you think it's 2023, how are we still navigating these issues? How is this still happening? And to hear you talk about bullies following you into the conference room, it's so heartbreaking. And when I think about inclusion, right, when you think about DEI in general, the reality is people can't do it alone, right? It doesn't work if everyone isn't bought in. I'm curious to know whether specific to DEI or specific to your career in general, in the people world, in the marketing world, what help or support do you wish that you had received along the way?
I talk about this in Reimagine Inclusion. I talk about this on social media and I get flack for it, but Melanie, I have been over-mentored and under-sponsored in my career. I will say that again. I have been over-mentored and under-sponsored in my career. And before you all come after me, let me explain. I have a lot of amazing mentors. I wouldn't be here today. Melanie would have invited me, Melanie Amanda, to do this with you all if I didn't have amazing mentors. Melanie and I met at Troop HR. I hope we become mentors for each other. The difference between mentorship and sponsorship is this. Here's what a sponsor does. A sponsor right now at Carta typically would be 2 levels above me. They would be somebody who has a pretty big P&L, access to budget. They are in the room when decisions are being made about talent. Yes, decisions are being made, doors are closed, and people are talking about you. That rocked my world when I first entered corporate America. Doors are closed and people are talking about you. And a career sponsor said to me, woman who became a career sponsor, do you know who's talking about you in your career when the doors are closed? Do you know who's fighting for you? And that rocked my world. And so a sponsor will get your name on a slate you didn't know existed. They'll get you coffee with the CEO. They will put your name up for a special task force. There's somebody who's advocating for your career And they have political skin in the game. They're using their social capital, and they're doing it because likely your work intersects in some way. And they know if, Melanie's my sponsor, I shine, she shines, we shine. But there's a difference between mentorship and sponsorship. And no one sat me down, I would say. At some point, I thought I was going to be a chief marketing officer. That might happen, right? But no one sat me down and said, okay, here are the 5 to 6 experiences you need to have to think about that. Or if I wanted to be a chief people officer, chief diversity officer, I fell into it and curated my experiences, but no one sat me down to guide me and give me some advice on what my career could look like and what it should look like if I wanted to get to a certain level.
I don't know if you've noticed, but in the comment section, people are just going wild.
Let me see. Yeah, I'm like trying to focus on you, and I was like seeing all this light up. Okay.
People are just like, yeah, sponsorship greater than mentorship. Everybody, by the way, I'm like, genuinely, it makes me so happy. Everyone's building community as we speak, sharing each other's LinkedIns, asking to join a community. By the way, if you all are genuinely interested in this, please like DM me, because Athena is, looking into would, people be interested in joining an Athena people community. But anyway, it's really fascinating. I remember you talking about this at the Troop HR retreat. And I remember sort of like a light bulb going off in my head as well when I heard this, because 1, it resonates, it like clicks, but 2, and I know it's different because like in an ideal world, it would like be 2 levels up, but at my level, the only level up is my CEO. And so, but I remember as soon as you said it, I remember thinking like, oh yeah, that's my boss. That is why things feel so different in this role than they have ever felt for me before. Because to your point, I had mentors, not sponsors. And I want to throw out something very specific because I think it's just so fascinating. So for anyone who is new to Athena, maybe not as familiar, it's HR tech. It's in the HR space. We're creating products for HR people, which means that I'm in this unique position, right, where, my opinion matters beyond just, go build employee experience. It's like, no. Do you like the product? Would you buy the product? How would you sell the product? And for the first time in my career, I'm in a position where it genuinely feels like, I have a seat at the table. They actually care about my opinion from a business, like a strategic business perspective. It feels wildly different to the point that actually I'm like so proud to be able to be a part of the company, but also I've been able to like help create some of our training content. I've been in the training content, shout out for our new management training coming out. But like, it's just the reason I'm emphasizing all this is because it's not just the sponsorship and the ripple effect that it has in terms of your career, but also the ripple effect that it has in your self-esteem, in your confidence, in your belief in yourself that like, I matter. My opinion matters. I'd love to throw this back at you, Mita. Like when you think back to your sponsors and the differences that they make. And I know that you said you're under-sponsored. Do you have any sponsors or did you have any sponsors?
Oh yeah, and so I want to be clear. I just wish I had those sponsors earlier in my career, right? My career trajectory might have been different. I have so many career sponsors now. I'm actively looking to get on a board. And so I think about career sponsors in that way, people who are sitting on boards currently, former leaders who have gone on to lead companies, right? So for me, the sponsorship lens is different if I'm looking to also serve on a board now. But some of the best career sponsors gave me honest feedback. This whole keep doing what you're doing, you're killing it, because people are too lazy or afraid or haven't been trained on how to give feedback. And then a year goes by and you think, well, I thought I was getting promoted. And you're like, all of a sudden get all the written feedback. It's like, what? I never saw this before, right? And so career sponsors will tell you that. One of the best career sponsors I ever had, who I'm still in touch with, he gave me some really good advice. Like I would go to these really big public company leadership team meetings, the board meeting and executive meeting, and you send all these pre-read out like a week in advance, and then you go and present. I was like, and this is what a sponsor does. He sat on the executive team, and he would, the night before, he pulled me to his office. He's like, I just want to give you a political read of the room. Melanie is lukewarm on your proposal. Amanda, I love you, but you're an absolute no. You hate the idea. Callie, green light. She's done this at another company. Susan could use some convincing. I had never thought about that. Like I was so naive. I just go present things and I'm like, no, these are all human beings. They're not gods. And I need to persuade them, right? And so giving me a political read of the room ahead of time, or even being like, hey, I loved your proposal, but people are going to have questions about these last two pieces. And so be prepared for that. And I certainly know Brian is going to be looking at, this piece of it. And so I was like, no one had ever done that for me before. And that to me was like a game changer, right? I'll never forget the year my dad suddenly died. I was scheduled to go speak at the Walmart Bentonville Film Festival, which is a huge deal. I was on a panel with Gina Davis and a bunch of other famous people. I don't remember, but I had canceled. And the same sponsor was like, no, it's a huge career moment. I'm coming down with you. He came down with me. We had dinner the night before. He talked about how he had lost his dad suddenly and was in the audience when I presented on behalf of the company that next day. So like, those are just some stories I have, but career sponsorship is really powerful. And what it does for me as a leader is I want to sponsor people. Like I have a responsibility, right? It's not just about, like, I always ask people, who are you fighting for other than your own career? We're all fighting for our career. Of course we are. We should be. But like, whose career are you fighting for other than your own? And so, yes, many of you in here want sponsors, and you should think about how to get them. But you should also think about, well, who are you sponsoring? And I don't care what level you're at. There's an opportunity to think about how you can help bring someone else along.
I love that call to action, and thinking about how we pay it forward. And gosh, that story is just like, it packs such a punch. You were just so, first of all, condolences. You have such a gift for really packing a punch in your storytelling, which is like, no wonder that you wrote a book. Makes sense.
Thank you.
Of course. I'd love to ask, real quick, like if you were to think like top 3 tips for anyone who is looking to get a sponsor and struggling, what helps you? How did you find sponsors? What tips do you have for others?
So this is, my friends, not like a friendship bracelet or the best friend necklace. I don't hand it to Melanie and be like, will you be my sponsor? No, that's not how it works. But I'll give you an example. I'll give you an example from my marketing days. I mean, anyone, if we have time for Q&A, which we will, I can sort of help do an example live and help someone think through it. But when I was back in marketing, let's say I was a senior manager and someone had said to me, my boss had said to me, why don't you review all the media investments we made in the last year? I want you to look to see, we spent all this money on TikTok and LinkedIn, et cetera. What was the return? What's happening, right? With the money we're spending? Awesome project. I'm working on it. Okay. So you have a project. Stop to think about who else in the organization might be invested in that project, other than your boss and other than your team. I'm going to guess the CFO would be interested. And Melanie made a good point. She's at a smaller company where her boss is her sponsor. And so in a smaller company, you might have access to the CFO. In a larger company, it might be the VP of finance. It might be a director of finance. So I would send a note in this case. I'd say, hey, Melanie, I'm working on this project. I think you might be interested. Wanted to get some coffee. Melanie says, yes. I sit down. I'm taking her through. Melanie starts getting really interested. Oh, it's interesting that you're looking at this and this. Like, why don't you come back in 4 to 6 weeks and share some updates, 4 weeks? I come back, have more updates. Melanie then says, I have a team meeting like Friday. Would you just come and share a top line, the stuff you're working on? So you see what I'm doing. What I do is in that relationship, I'm making Melanie feel like she's also part of the work, because there's synergies and she's interested in it. And guess what? Next time there's a talent review and I'm up for promotion, you better believe Melanie's going to speak up and say, hey, Mita's been working on this project. She's been sharing with me. It's great. And did you know the cost savings she's looked at for how we're going to relook at media spend next year? And so that's just one example. I said, proud daughter of Indian immigrant parents. My parents gave me a lot of gifts that I had to unlearn in corporate America. My dad used to always say, keep your head down, work hard, stay out of trouble, you'll be recognized. And that's not how it works. And so I was too often doing great work, but not really looking up to think about who else needs to know about my work and how can I find allies and create sort of co-ownership of work.
It's such a powerful statement in particular because I think so many, I'm sure this is going to resonate with so many people. Like I even, I have a Hispanic background, I'm a Hispanic woman, it's got its own things. And yeah, absolutely. I was always raised with the same mindset. Keep your head down, work hard, don't cause too much, don't stir the way, don't cause too many waves, right? Like don't cause trouble, make things easy for people. And it doesn't work. It just doesn't work. And so I really love your story in particular because what stands out to me is, I think it is really easy and tempting to just ask like, hey, I need help. And what I'm getting from your story, and tell me if I'm getting it wrong, is it's also got to be about what you're giving and what you're showing and what you're selling. You've got to make
Absolutely.
a case, right?
So it's this mentorship takes all sorts of forms, but the difference in what I'm telling you is I could meet and just have coffee, with Melanie, the CFO. That's not what I'm doing. I'm not having coffee to ask her about her career journey. That's a different conversation. I'm meeting with her about a work product, an initiative I've been asked to lead that's going to make impact for the company. And you better believe I want her to know that I'm leading it. I want to get credit for it. And I want her buy-in and I want her feedback so she can see how it works. And so that's really the difference. And I didn't know I had to do that for myself. Now, at large companies, I, as a chief diversity officer, have set up sponsorship programs. That's also possible. I talk about that in Reimagine Inclusion. But if you're somebody who's like, I need a sponsor, how do I get a sponsor? That's what I think about. Okay, also, don't leave and try to get 10 sponsors. That's not what I'm saying. You need like 2 career sponsors, 1, and you need to know like when talent is being reviewed, who's sitting at that table. And Melanie, this is particularly important because I've had a lot of great bosses and I have a lot of bosses that weren't my cup of tea, didn't work out, didn't have a great relationship. You're in a situation where your boss is your sponsor. That's not always going to be the case for everybody. So you need to make sure that there are other people who are going to say your name when you're not in the room and who are going to advocate for your advancing your career.
Oh, I think that's so strong. Truly, the statement that your boss might not be your sponsor. They might not
Let's
be.
say it out loud because we don't. I've had many bosses who were not my sponsor and did not advocate for me. And I didn't know that. I found that out later on or too late. And so you have to be honest and do that assessment that this moment, you're here to make impact, you're here to do work, but your boss might not have your back. It might not be the relationship that's always going to be, but then figure out who are their peers, who's the boss's boss, who else can you talk about what you're doing to, so they know the impact you're making. Don't rely on your boss to do it for you.
I don't know if you could see, but in the comments, people are like, yeah.
I'm trying to focus. Yes, let me go back to the comments. I just see it's like lighting up. Wow.
I'll summarize them for you afterwards because I'm paying attention. I'm loving, or not, sorry, I didn't mean to imply. Anyway, I'm looking at it because I'm hooked.
That's great. Yes.
Great. So, okay, I would love to take a step back for a quick second because here's I think it's great that we're talking about, what are the things that you should be doing? What are the support systems that you need? I also think it's equally important to talk about, what are the things that maybe we're doing to hold ourselves back? What are some behaviors that we need to get rid of? What are some pitfalls that we are falling into? And so I'm curious to know, when you think about your career trajectory, right? You talked a little bit about, don't just keep your head down, sell yourself, be loud, make sure people know the value that you bring to the table. What are some of the behaviors or mindsets that you think people, professionals in general, it doesn't have to be that you've done this, but maybe you've just observed it. What do you think people, professionals are doing wrong and need to, get better at if they want to get ahead in their careers?
I go back to my parents and all the gifts they taught me and how that translates into a corporate America that doesn't appreciate those gifts. Stay humble, hustle hard, one of my core values. Humility is one of my core values my parents taught me. Always about making impact, be behind the scenes, putting other people's comfort ahead of yours, culture of hospitality. I think that all translates to the people professional world. And so this idea of people professionals are the unsung heroes. They're the backbone of the company, but you have to be willing and able and capable to share your story and points on the board and the impact you're making. And so there is this idea of the people professional becoming, they're a part of the business. Why aren't you sharing those wins, right? Too often it's, well, the chief revenue officer is presenting that because why can't you co-present it, right? I'm not saying all the time, but I'm saying like making sure that people know the value you're adding. Because if you don't talk about it and you're over sharing the spotlight, Like I was behind the spotlight. I was like under the desk. Like I was like, no, like I always was like, I know I'm doing good work. People will, no, they won't. No, they won't. Right. There's that. There's also this idea that it's okay to quit people, spaces, and places that no longer serve you. It's okay to quit projects and initiatives. And so I say to everybody in this market, because it's the grit, it's the resilience piece. It's I can outwork anyone, and probably even you, Melanie. Let's have a race. Who can work harder? It's not about working hard. It's about working smart. And so particularly in the people function, you have got to know what the business priorities are. They are changing. And especially in this market, especially if you're in tech and a smaller company. So you have to constantly understand and be realigned and know what value you're adding. And you have to just say, no, we're going to stop this project. Even if it was your pet project, you're going to quit it. You're not going to pretend to quit it and keep working on it on the side. No, full stop. This is dead. It's gone. We're sending it to, there's a great book my kids used to love, Balloonia, The Balloon Goes to Heaven, when the kid freaks out, right? My daughter would always lose the balloons. Send it away. Bye, project. Love you. Bye.
It's really fascinating hearing you talk about this. One, because I 100% identify with this. Two, because I agree. And three, because, one of the things that I think about a lot is the fact that the HR field is so heavily dominated by women identifying people, which is fabulous. It's amazing. I love it. Yes, women represent. And also, right, we have seen that unfortunately women have been socially conditioned, right, to keep their head down, to boast a little bit less. Women, unfortunately have been conditioned to, not say no, to try to, do everything in your power to say yes to things. They take on more meetings. We take on more projects. We do the side things, the administrative tasks that are not our responsibility, like a note in the meeting, even though what the hell, we might be the most senior person in the room. And so my question to you is, I wonder, like, in your opinion, does that factor in at all to any of this? Do you think it's sort of like a byproduct? Do you think it's completely?
Listen, I think you raise a valid point, and we don't want to stereotype any community. Like, you and I have very similar experiences, but we don't represent all women. What I will say, though, when you think about diversity of representation, it's just as important in the people function. Because if we were sitting here talking about a function that was 90% men, we'd be having conversations around it, right? So in companies where I've had, it's like 90% women in HR or marketing. We also have a responsibility of thinking about diversity of representation when it comes to gender balance, particularly, let's say, for individuals who identify as a man or a woman. Like, interesting to think about, right? Because I always ask people to think about the flip, right? Because if we had a function that was heavily dominated by men, we would ask, where are the women, right? And so obviously, like, utopia is, which is what we're all striving for, is we want representation from all different life experiences and communities. But I do think there's something you've hit on, particularly how some women may have been socialized growing up, and the gender stereotypes and the cultural norms, which so many of us hold on to, we bring to the workplace. I just mentioned so many of them from my upbringing, and that's really impacted how I show up at work and lead.
Yeah, I think about even the way that people will respond. I wonder if women and men are advocating in the same ways, but they're getting different responses,
Absolutely. And, I'm going to evoke Taylor Swift for a second. There's a reason. My 8-year-old loves the Anti-Hero song. I'm like a fake Swiftie fan. I I'm not a real Swiftie fan, but Taylor Swift, right? Anti-Hero. There's a line in it that says, "Hi, it's me. I'm the problem. It's me." And I felt that way for much of my career when I was chasing inclusion. I kept going to different companies because I couldn't figure out places I belonged. And so part of it is, I realized, part of it has been my cultural upbringing in a corporate America that doesn't value the gifts that I bring, right? Doesn't value more quiet, introverted leaders. That's changing. But to your point, it's also the systems and processes that have been set up that wasn't designed, a world of work that wasn't designed for someone who looked like me with my lived experience. I hope that's changing. I know it's changing, but you raise a really important point, that I can ask for something, and I know I've had, especially when it comes to negotiation. And my friend, who's a white man, had happened before in my career, has asked for the same thing, same level. He's getting the compensation adjustment, I'm not. So, right. So I think we all can understand that it's like, it's both, but you're absolutely right. Systems and processes that weren't designed for everybody.
Well, what's interesting is, I'm really happy, obviously, that in the end, you've really developed such a successful career for yourself. You've gone on to write a book. You're the Chief Diversity Officer at Carta. You're sharing so much wisdom here on this call. And you talked a little bit about how, your marketing career helped with some of this.
Yes.
I'd love to know, what skills, when you think about the skills that helped you be so successful, what are they?
I think for anyone right now who's growing their career in the people function, data and storytelling is key. And I just grew up in marketing doing that. I also loved writing and storytelling, but what is the data telling us, and how are you going to tell a story about it? Whether that's about great talent you're attracting, whether that's about attrition rates or what you found from investigations and themes, like, people want the story. And so you have to be able to collect the data, analyze the data, and pull together a story. I think that's a really critical skill for whatever you do, but particularly if you're working in the people function. I would also say, stakeholder management and consensus building. Those are things that have been really important in my career. And I know that many of you will probably relate to that. I would also say, and I know this came up earlier, but, as a people leader, really intimately understanding the P&L, really intimately understanding. I go back to, what does your company do? How much are they selling of what? And how did they do this quarter? How are they projected to do next quarter, right? In a public company, it's very different. You are accountable to shareholders. I know there are many individuals in a private company, like where you're working, Melanie, where I am at Carta, like understanding what our quarterly targets are, right? Being very aligned to what is driving the business, the health of the business, and what does that mean for you? Because I think with that, you also build more credibility as a partner to the business if you understand the intricacies of how the business is running.
Gotcha. And I really am just continuing to enjoy everyone's contributions to this discussion. It's just fascinating. All right, I'm going to take a step back and do a pulse check question, because I want to bring the audience back into this, and then in a few minutes we'll cross over to Q&A. So people, get your questions ready. Start thinking of them. On a scale of 1 to 5 to the audience, one of the things we've talked a lot about, or indirectly, is confidence, right? And being able to sell yourself and being able to bring that to the table and not just keep your head down. So, my question to the audience is, scale of 1 to 5, if confidence were an Olympic sport, I'd have 3 gold medals. 5, I super agree with this statement. 1, what is Olympic sport? What is confidence? All right, I'll give people a quick set. Oh, here they come. All right. Ooh, I really like this. We've got a good diversity of answers here. I saw a 4 somewhere. All right, gonna wait. Ooh, I got a 5 even. This is amazing. All right, so I'm gonna call on one person on one end of the extreme, and then I'll do the other. So let's do Erica Spitali. You've given a 1 on this. So what is confidence? Tell me a little bit more about this. Why do you think that you struggle with confidence, or why do you say, why would you say that you struggle with confidence?
Yeah, I didn't necessarily answer it, I think, from I struggle with confidence. I just think confidence is so subjective. And I think how people show up in specific environments dictates how they then model or behave or align with confidence, right? And so how I'm confident with my friend group is very different than how I'm confident at work. And so I do think the question of what is confidence is so big, because I do think, especially as a woman of color, it varies and it has to.
Yep, you're getting definitely some agreement in the comments. I hear that. Mita, it looks like maybe you have something to say there too.
No, I just spot on. It's so much a reflection of culturally who we are too. If I don't smile enough, if I'm not talking enough, if I'm more quiet, that doesn't mean I'm less confident. It's just your perception of what confidence is, right? And so I think that's so important, that confidence means different things to different people, and we can't have one cultural lens or understanding of this is what it means to be confident.
I really love that we're emphasizing this in particular because, I mean, gendered feedback is a thing. You can Google it. And, you know, one of the things to look out for, unfortunately, is, you know, women of color in particular will often get feedback that is a little bit too generic, and it will be, you know, you don't have enough confidence. You need to build more confidence. And, you know, maybe there is a kernel of truth there, but it's not specific enough, and it doesn't tell you if it's coming from a place of bias or not. And so definitely, if anyone on the call here is giving it a 1 or 2 because somebody told you you lack confidence, I would highly encourage you to follow up with that person and ask for more specific questions. You know, what are the behaviors or actions or, you know, accomplishments or lack thereof that are indicating to you that, you know, I lack confidence? And I'm not saying that it has to be in a contentious, argumentative way, right? You can say, I really want to I really appreciate that you took the time to give me feedback. I want to make sure I'm hearing you correctly. Can you give me more specifics? Can we dig in here so that I understand, you know, the behavior change that is necessary, right? That way you're building a conversation. Mita, I don't know if you've, it sounds like maybe you have experienced some of this in your own professional career. Any tips that you want to throw out there?
Yeah, I loved what you said. Ask for specific feedback. Tell me more about your feedback regarding my confidence. I'd love to understand how you define confidence, or if you have specific examples of where you thought I lacked confidence. And so you're getting that person who's giving the vague, coded, biased, gendered, all the things, feedback to self-reflect. And then they're like, huh, I just threw that out there, or maybe I do have a specific example. And so I love that you said follow up with the more specific question.
Let's call in someone from the other extreme, and then we'll pick it back over because I want to leave just a few minutes for Q&A. DeVille Fisher, you gave a 5. Can you unmute yourself? I'm curious. This is amazing. Tell us a little bit more about why this is a 5 for you.
Yes, hello. You hear me?
Yep.
Good. So, why did I say 5? One, because I definitely am confident. Hopefully it's not because I'm a male, but more so because, you know, I believe in my abilities. I know what I know, and I also know what I don't know. So some of the things that I do need to work on as far as weaknesses, software skills, data analytics, things of that nature. And I'm also more so speaking professionally, because I would definitely put like a 10 in my regular life, right? But work life, I put a 5, you know, mainly because I just understand where I am and I know where I need to get better at. And I think I definitely agreed with the last speaker. Sorry, I don't remember your name, but when it comes to, you know, delivering that confidence, you know, sometimes, and I'll be a little bit transparent on some of my reports or presentations, you know, I've received rave reviews, and then on other reports or presentations, I've received, you know, criticism that could, you know, help me, and I always kind of try to look at it so that it can help me and not necessarily look at it in a way that someone's trying to down me. But at the same time, when I looked at both of those presentations, it was in fact, you know, information that I was 100% knowledgeable on, when they, you know, gave me a rave review on. And then of course, when I got you know, let's say I got a grade B on it, it was because, you know, I wasn't 100% sure of what to say. I wasn't 100% sure of how to present this information, and I wanted to be, you know, so spot on. So I'm presenting and thinking and giving my own feedback in my head, and, you know, ruining myself while I'm trying to hurry up in my presentation. That's why I gave that 5 answer. But just to piggyback off of the last speaker, definitely understand why the, you know, the confidence can go from 1 to 5 during particular presentations.
Thank you. I love the point that you made about knowing what you don't know, and sort of, being open to the fact that like sometimes we don't know things, and
Mhm.
it's okay to reach out and figure it out and learn from there, not being scared to acknowledge that maybe you don't know everything. Thank you for sharing. Okay, in the interest of time, Mita, I'm going to ask you one last question to wrap this one up, and then we'll open it up to Q&A because it seems like we've got a bunch coming in. So my question to you is, speaking on confidence, in particular, because we did have so many people with 3 or lower as their score here, you appear to be, right? I never know what's going on in people's minds.
Yes.
But you appear to be a person with a lot of confidence and courage, in the sense that, I would imagine it takes a lot of confidence and courage to put yourself out there, writing a book, posting on LinkedIn, sharing personal anecdotes, not just about your work, but also, the cultural aspect of these things, And we were talking a little bit about the fact that, this is important and relevant to the people space, right? Many of the people who make up the people space, either struggle with confidence or, have a series of identities that, impact the way that they're working, right? Because of the way that people, may or may not be as inclusive as they should be. And so my question to you is, how can anyone who's struggling to build confidence or build courage, how can they tackle that? How can they take steps to start, feeling more comfortable putting themselves out there so that they can get a sponsor?
I think the first and most important thing you have to do is do a self audit of what is the root cause of the lack of confidence. Is it the boss? Is it the environment? Right? I'm about to write a piece on this. It's not imposter syndrome. It might be career gaslighting. So is it other people who are instilling doubts in you? Is it your own inner voice and inner critic? Is it cultural trauma and upbringing and things that we don't talk about that's still buried deep inside you that you haven't healed from, which is causing you a lack of confidence? You have to identify the root source, because generally, at least in my experience, a lack of confidence is also related to some sort of trauma I've had that I haven't healed from. Grief, I talked about earlier, losing my father. If you read Sheryl Sandberg's Option B with Adam Grant that she co-wrote, she talks about the Sheryl Sandberg, former CEO of Meta, her confidence plummeting after her husband's death, how she was unable to show up in meetings and contribute. Like, you're like, Sheryl Sandberg? Right. So that's what you have to do, and know that confidence is ebbs and flows. Like right now, I'm super comfortable with who I am and who I've become and who I'm becoming. Just as Develle said, I hope I'm saying your name right. I am just confident that I'm going to figure it out. That's a confident. And all of you should be that way too, because there's no function that can be more ambiguous and more difficult than the people function, right? Because it is just what it is. And you just have to be confident you will figure it out, and you have, and you will continue to do that.
I really love that framing. I'm going to figure it out. If I don't know how to do it now, there will be a way. For anyone who's not familiar, this is very aligned with sort of like the growth mindset philosophy, right? It's not, oh, I can't do this. It's I can if, right? I can if I do the research. I can if I find a mentor. I can if. I'm curious, Mita, as a follow-up to this, was there a turning point for you where you were able to figure this out for yourself and say like, okay, I'm shifting. I'm going to do things differently?
I think there's nothing like a global pandemic to rewrite our stories, right? I sort of was like, what am I waiting for? There was my dad's death. And then I was like, what am I waiting for? And I also lost 3 family members in the pandemic in India. And so I just thought to myself, what am I waiting for? And there's nothing like those moments to reset, to say, this is it. We've got one life to live. Make the impact you can make while you're here.
I really love that. Okay, I promise we do a couple
Sure.
of minutes Q&A. So we got one in. So I'll read it from Emily Barden. Thank you, Emily. What is your recommendation to someone who's a people team of 1 and any other people team colleagues are based in a different country, with regard to trying to get ahead in your career? And I imagine, this is probably relatable to many people. You're a team of 1. How do you grow? How do you rely on people? How do you, find resources, support? So yeah, Mita, any advice from you?
I think that especially in our global way of working, remote, hybrid, all of it, you have to be able to manage up, and you have to be able to manage across. people need to know what you're working on and the value. And so if you're sitting in an office and you're in isolation or you're working remotely and everybody else is in another location, unfortunately, you have to just try a bit harder to let them know. We assume, like, here's the thing. I don't remember what I had for dinner last night. I'm trying to figure out what I'm going to eat and feed my kids tonight. But like we're human. We forget things. So Melanie might be working on all these amazing things. And Melanie just assumes that I, her boss, Erica, her peer, we don't remember. So remind us. And I think that's really key to building relationships, is with credibility and authority on the things that you're working on, so people can see the value you're adding. I think that's like one of the pieces I missed really early in my career.
I think it's a really powerful perspective, just reminding people, if somebody misses something you did, it might not necessarily be personal. They just got their own stuff they're worried about, right? So you got to remind them.
Let me tell you, I will give you a piece of advice, is that when it's performance review time, I've done this for my direct reports. I've done this with my boss. There might be a self-evaluation, but go ahead and ask your boss, do you mind if I send you a list of the 5 things I accomplished this year? Be proactive. It's your career. No one is going to care more about your career than you. Don't imagine the boss remembers everything. They can't, they're human. And so remind them. And most people will be grateful. Most people will be grateful for that reminder.
As a manager, 100% agree. What are your thoughts on specializing versus generalizing in the HR field?
I think both is important, particularly when you get to be a chief people officer. You're going from basically directing, doing to directing. How can you help direct an investigation if you've never done parts of it? How can you direct RIFs if you've actually never sat and had to terminate someone and understand all the intricacies of like making sure their system access is shut off, to when is it shut off, to payroll, to benefit, right? So I think like you should be specializing, and you should also be building your career towards what you want to be doing and making impact. The thing I'll say is, there's no experts anymore in the world. Sorry if I burst your bubble. They're just people with deep expertise. So go after the things that you're passionate about and collect those pockets of expertise. Because if you are looking to be ahead of people, you're going to dive into details, but you also have to be a generalist, right? You have to do both.
And you heard it from a chief diversity officer, who you would think probably is more specialized, but you're right, it's not. Okay, last question. What would you suggest if you find yourself in an organization where you won't be able to grow beyond where you are today, but maybe because of the market, you're nervous to find another job somewhere else?
Don't rust out at your job. This is a whole new term. I love these new terms. Rusting out is like, you're just like so bored and just like withering away in your role. Upskill yourself, learn new things, ask to get an accreditation. Most of us have access to Udemy or Coursera or LinkedIn. Like, there's so many ways in which you can be upskilling yourself so you're ready for that next job. Don't waste this moment. There might be also things in your current company, other projects and things you can take on. And so that's my advice, is just like, we always stay ready. Be ready for when the moment's arriving for what you're meant to do next. You'll be ready for it.
I love that. Thank you so much, Mita. I really appreciate the focus on emphasis on resourcefulness. For everyone, thank you, Amanda, for putting up the slide. Please note that we'll be sending a follow-up with a recording, so on and so forth. Amanda's actually going to share a poll with you all. If you could all just take like 30 seconds, 15 seconds to complete the poll for us. We're just curious to get your feedback. And in the meantime, I do want to share with everyone that Athena is running a deal right now where you can get 6 months free of any of our products, whether it be our new management training, speaking of development, or our anonymous reporting tool, or our harassment prevention training. So especially if you're locked into a vendor contract that you maybe are trying to get out of and you are interested, we have this deal. Reach out to us to learn more about this, our management training. Mita, I want to thank you so much. I can tell from the comments and the participation and the little hearts that keep floating up across my screen that everyone was so grateful for your contributions. Really could not have gone better, could not have appreciated this more. Like, truly, thank you. Really appreciate you.
Melanie, thank you so much. Thank you to Athena. We're proud customers at Carta. Love the Troop HR community, love this community. And I hope I come back again, Melanie, at some point. I'd love to do this again. This was amazing. Thank you. Thank you, Melanie and Amanda.
All right. Thank you. And thank you all. Hope everybody has a great rest of your day. Bye.